Immanuel Kant, a central figure in Enlightenment philosophy, offered ideas on establishing and preserving international peace in his 1795 essay, Perpetual Peace, a Philosophical Sketch. Kant's vision, while idealistic, has served as a foundation for international relations theory and influenced attempts at building cooperative structures to mitigate armed conflict. Hi, Matt. If you're done playing that video game, can we discuss Kant's ideas on achieving a lasting peace between nations?
Sure. I was running out of ammo anyway. How should we begin?
Let's start with Kant's 6 preliminary articles that presented a path towards peace.
Okay. Kant firmly believed that to achieve the goal of peace, deliberate measures and agreements must be reached between nations. His first point was that there shouldn't be secret treaties, meaning agreements entered into for the purpose of initiating a war in the future. He believed that such clandestine deals undermined trust and fed an environment of suspicion. These secret treaties during his time were made with the goal of partitioning conquered territory, such as division of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, as well as secret alliances between royal families.
The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth is an interesting case study in political structures, maybe a subject for a future video. But let's continue.
In his second point, Kant condemned the notion of states, especially smaller and weaker states, being treated as property to be acquired through such means as conquest, inheritance, purchase, or exchange. Basically, he argued that such actions violated the autonomy of individuals residing within those territories and disregarded their right to self-governance. As we have seen throughout modern history, this kind of activity has been at the root of conflicts ranging from the world wars to colonial and post-colonial conflicts. Kant's third idea was the abolition of standing armies. He thought that the existence of large, readily deployable armies posed a constant threat to peace. He suggested that over time, states should gradually disband standing armies and rely on citizen militias for defense.
I don't think our current-day military-industrial complex would go for this idea. Besides, it may be impractical in other ways, such as some nations having belligerent, authoritarian governments.
That's true, John. But Kant did account for these things, and we'll get to that later. Let's move on to his fourth point. In this point, Kant warned against the practice of incurring national debt for the sake of external warfare. He believed this would create a cycle of fiscal entanglement, undermining a state's resources and leading to increasing tensions. Going back to the idea of a standing military that's incurring debt, we can see how Kant's warning might apply to our modern-day situation. His fifth article is going to hit close to home too, John. This one upholds the idea of non-interference in the internal affairs of other nations, especially by force. Kant emphasized the importance of recognizing the sovereignty and political systems of individual states.
But, Matt, what about oppressive regimes that commit human rights abuses or pose a threat to regional security?
Kant had more or less assumed that all governments would eventually become representative republics, not autocracies. He saw international organizations as being a way to deal with this situation diplomatically, although he was perhaps somewhat overly idealistic in this regard.
Yeah, just a little bit. What was his sixth article?
Kant held that there should be no use of dishonorable strategies in war, that there should be adherence to certain ethical boundaries. He condemned treacherous acts of espionage, sabotage, inciting rebellion within an enemy state, attacks on non-combatant civilians, or employing assassins. These underhanded tactics, he argued, violated the basic trust necessary for future peace.
It seems like a lot of these ethical considerations get thrown out the window in modern warfare.
It does seem that way, John. Of course, Kant had some ideas on how to make these preliminary articles workable.
What were those ideas?
First and foremost, he believed that this perpetual peace could only be reached when all nations had a representative republic style of government. Kant extolled the virtues of a republican form of government, where power resided with the citizenry and was exercised through a representative system with a separation of powers. He saw this model as inherently less likely to wage war, as it required the consent of the citizens who bore the consequences of conflict. Beyond that, Kant emphasized the rule of law, both within and between states, as being vital. Transparent, agreed-upon rules and a mechanism for resolving disputes form a predictable world order by reducing uncertainty and the propensity for states to unilaterally resort to violence. To achieve this, Kant championed universal hospitality, which centers on the idea that all individuals, regardless of their nationality or origin, possess a fundamental right to be treated with basic decency when visiting a foreign land. He viewed this concept as encouraging interaction and understanding between people of different backgrounds. By fostering connections and reducing the fear of outsiders, it aims to create an environment less prone to conflict.
It appears that balancing this hospitality with safety and border control remains an ongoing issue in modern-day politics.
Quite right, John. It is a delicate balance and even suggests broader questions that he tried to address in this work. Kant acknowledged that establishing perfect republics takes time, if it is possible at all. But the spread of these ideals, even imperfect ones, would move the world incrementally closer to a more peaceful order. However, he didn't suggest outright pacifism, but prudence. He understood that even well-functioning governments may need to wage war, especially against autocratic aggressors. He believed that the inherent checks and balances of a republic would make them more cautious and less likely to initiate conflicts for frivolous reasons.
Matt, didn't Kant have what he called his secret article?
Yes, he suggested that even within the pragmatic political realities of war, leaders must leave space for considering the wisdom and long-term vision offered by those who dedicate themselves to thinking about the structures of peace.
I guess this provided some justification for the League of Nations and later the United Nations.
The creation of international organizations and treaties dedicated to creating a more peaceful world often embody the Kantian ideal of states coming together in a rule-based framework to avoid conflict. While these organizations have been far from perfect, they represent the ongoing movement towards a more peaceful world.
What are some of the other legacies of Kant's ideas on peaceful international relations?
Kant's emphasis on republican governance laid the groundwork for the influential democratic peace theory. This theory proposes that democracies rarely, if ever, go to war with each other. This principle has significant implications for foreign policy and the promotion of representative democracy globally. Kant's idea of universal hospitality aligns with cosmopolitan philosophies advocating for moral obligations beyond borders. It underscores the importance of seeing all humans as part of a shared community, regardless of nationality. This has fueled discussions on humanitarian intervention, global responsibility, and the rights of refugees.
Of course, we see these concepts being used and abused all the time. What are the criticisms leveled at Kant's ideas in Perpetual Peace?
Basically, they boil down to the argument that Kant overestimates humans' rational nature and underplays the role of emotions like greed, fear, and the pursuit of power. They think that the idea of a world without conflict is unrealistic, as nations will always have competing interests and power struggles. Another problem some point out is that while some states claim that they're republics of the people, in practice they're actually authoritarian states. They also point out the history of republics engaging in colonial wars and various minor conflicts to acquire and hold resources and power. They note that Kant had a rigorous definition of a true republic that many modern states would fail to meet, potentially excluding them from his vision of a peaceful federation. Also, while Kant envisioned a federation of states, he didn't offer a blueprint for its structure or enforcement mechanisms. Many see the potential for abuse where a supranational body with enforcement power or a single superpower with de facto enforcement power might become tyrannical itself or a tool to dominate weaker nations. Some also point out that his vision also didn't anticipate the rise of internal and ethno-religious conflicts that have become modern-day threats to peace.
Yes, Matt, it seems that a perfect peace will continue to elude us and that Kant's specific prescriptions may not align entirely with modern political realities. But we also need to consider that his core concepts of representative republicanism, the rule of law, the rejection of secrecy and subterfuge, and cooperative institutions to resolve disputes remain relevant in obtaining some degree of peace in the world.
What do you think? Are Kant's ideas practical or just idealistic ideas from a bygone age? Let us know in the comments. But I can assure you that it would be universally hospitable to watch this suggested video and to subscribe to our channel as well.